He was born heir to a fortune worth billions, but from the moment he opened his eyes, he saw nothing. In 3 long years, he had never spoken a single word. Doctors from around the world came and left, defeated. 3 years of silence. 3 years of darkness. His father had almost lost all hope until one day, a poor little girl with dusty feet and muddy hands walked into their shining world. What happened next left everyone speechless. Before we begin this heart-touching story, don't forget to show some love. Hit that subscribe button, tap the like, and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's dive in. No high-tech machines, no expensive treatments, just gentle touch, endless patience, and something no expert had ever tried before: love. The glass doors of the grand villa sparkled like diamonds in the morning sun. Inside, silence filled every corner like a heavy fog. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of a library or a sleeping baby's room. It was the kind that pressed on the heart, cold and sad. Even the servants walked softly and whispered like ghosts. In the eastern wing, past long hallways lined with priceless art, there was one special room. The walls were painted cream, the air smelled of medicine. Monitors beeped softly, therapy tools sat untouched on shelves. This room had cost more than some hospitals. Yet, the little boy inside remained a mystery. Unreachable. His name was Ethan Villa. He was 3 years old. He sat on a soft mat, small hands resting in his lap. His eyes were the color of honey, warm and bright, but they saw nothing. His hair was dark and smooth. His clothes were made of the finest fabric. But none of that mattered. Ethan had never seen his own face. He had never spoken his father's name. He lived in a world of silence and shadows, a world no money could unlock. Outside the glass window stood Robert Villa, his father. 42 years old. Gray lines ran through his once black hair, gray that hadn't been there before Ethan was born. Robert was one of the richest men in the country. He owned tech companies, lands, and skyscrapers. He could buy almost anything. Almost. But he couldn't buy his son's voice. He couldn't buy his son's sight. And that truth was slowly breaking him inside. "Mr. Villa, the new specialist from Switzerland has arrived," said Margaret, the head nurse. A kind woman in her 50s. She had cared for Ethan since the day he was born. Her voice carried hope, even when her eyes did not. 27 doctors had come before this one. 27 had left with quiet apologies. Robert didn't look away from his son. "Send him in," he said softly. Dr. Heinrich Müller entered moments later. Tall, calm, with silver-rimmed glasses and a heavy accent. He was known for helping children others could not. Robert had paid a fortune to bring him here for 1 week. "Mr. Villa," Dr. Müller said, scanning Ethan's files, "I've reviewed everything. His case is unusual. His eyes are healthy, his voice box perfect. Yet he does not see. He does not speak. He barely reacts to anything." Robert's jaw tightened. "I know all that," he said. "I've heard it from 27 others. Just tell me, can you help my son or not?" Dr. Müller hesitated, adjusting his glasses. "I would like to try my method. It has helped children in Europe before. But your son's case, it is the most severe I've ever seen. He shows no response to sound, touch, or temperature. It's as if he has shut himself away from the world." "He's 3 years old," Robert said, his voice trembling. "He didn't choose this. Something is wrong, fix it." Inside the therapy room, Ethan sat still as stone. A colorful toy ball rested before him, soft music playing when it was pressed. He didn't reach for it. He didn't turn toward the sound. He just sat in silence, lost in his dark little world. Dr. Müller spent an hour trying. He used textured toys, gentle sounds, warm and cold cloths. Nothing worked. No reaction. No movement. It was as if Ethan didn't even know they were there. When Dr. Müller stepped out, Robert saw the truth in his eyes before he spoke. "I'm sorry, Mr. Villa," he said softly. "My methods cannot help. There is something deeper, something I cannot touch." Your son has built walls I do not know how to break. Robert's heart sank. He had hoped for so long, but hearing another failure shattered him. Get out, Robert whispered. Mr. Villa, get out, Robert roared, voice echoing down the hall. Send your bill and leave. Dr. Muller lowered his head and walked away quietly. Margaret tried to comfort Robert, but he pulled away and went to his office, locking the door behind him. Inside, surrounded by trophies and business awards, Robert sat at his desk, hands covering his face. All his success meant nothing now. The weight of helplessness crushed him. He would have given everything just to hear his son say one word. Outside the mansion's tall iron gates, the world looked very different. Just 3 miles away stood small houses with cracked paint and broken fences. Here, people worked 2 jobs just to pay rent. Children played on dusty streets instead of private playgrounds. A fancy meal meant pizza on a Friday night. Among these homes lived a little girl named Penny. She was 4 years old, with wild brown curls that refused to stay still. Every morning, her mother tried to brush them down and failed. Her clothes were clean but old, passed down from her cousin. Her shoes had holes, but she didn't seem to mind. Penny's father had left when she was just a baby. Her mother, Carol, worked as a housekeeper to keep them alive. Money was always short, but Carol never complained. And even though they had little, Penny had something rare. She had a heart full of wonder. Penny saw beauty where others saw nothing. In the weeds between sidewalk cracks, in the soft sound of rain against glass, in the sparkle of a simple stone found near the river. While other kids watched cartoons, Penny collected tiny treasures, feathers, shiny pebbles, funny-shaped leaves. Her pockets were always full of nature's magic. Penny, stop playing in that mud and come eat your breakfast. Carol's voice came from their small kitchen. She was tying her hair back, already dressed for work. 3 houses to clean today, and the biggest one belonged to Mr. Villa. Penny looked up, hands covered in dark brown soil. Her cheeks had little streaks of dirt, and her smile showed a missing tooth. But Mama, look. She said proudly. This one's the mama. And these are her babies. Penny Marie. Carol sighed, trying not to smile. We can't be late today. Come inside. Penny giggled and ran in, leaving tiny muddy footprints behind. She washed her hands under the cold tap. Their heater had broken weeks ago. The water felt icy, but she didn't complain. She just watched the brown swirl down the drain like melted chocolate. Mama, she asked between bites of toast. Why do you work at so many houses? Carol smiled, tired but gentle. Because, sweetheart, that's how we pay for our food and home. Some people have more money than they can count, so they pay people like me to clean their big houses. Are they nice? Penny asked softly. Most of them are, Carol said, but her eyes told another story. Today, I'm going to the biggest house I've ever seen. A man named Mr. Villa lives there with his little boy. Penny's eyes lit up. He has a boy? How old? About your age, maybe 3. Carol knelt down and took Penny's hands. Listen carefully, sweetie. Mrs. Henderson is sick today, so I have to take you with me. But you must be on your best behavior. This job is very important for Mama, okay? The Villa family is very rich and very private. You can't touch anything. Promise me. Penny nodded, eyes wide. I promise, Mama. I'll be so quiet, you'll forget I'm there. Carol smiled. Though she knew her daughter's curiosity had its own mind. She packed her cleaning supplies, took Penny's hand, and they left. The bus ride took 40 long minutes. From their old neighborhood to streets lined with perfect lawns. Penny pressed her face to the window, eyes full of wonder. The houses got bigger, the cars shinier, the trees taller. It was like watching another world appear before her. When they finally reached the Villa estate, Penny gasped. The iron gates were taller than any building she had ever seen. Through them, she saw a house that looked like a castle. White stone walls, giant windows shining like mirrors. Mama, do kings live here? She whispered. Carol smiled nervously. No, sweetie. Just a very rich man and his son. Remember what I said. Best behavior. At the gate, a guard checked Carol's ID and nodded. They walked up the long driveway together. Penny couldn't stop staring. Flowers bloomed in every color. Fountains sparkled under the sun. Even the bushes were cut into animal shapes. It felt like stepping into a dream. At the side door, Margaret, the head nurse, greeted them. She looked surprised to see Penny. Mrs. Martinez, I didn't know you'd be bringing your daughter. Carol's face turned red. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Margaret. My sitter is sick. I promise Penny won't cause any trouble. She'll stay with me and won't touch a thing. Margaret studied Penny for a moment. The little girl stood quietly, clutching her mother's hand. There was kindness in Margaret's eyes and maybe a touch of sadness, too. She thought of little Ethan, alone in his therapy room, unreachable. It's all right, Margaret said finally, but she must stay with you at all times. The East Wing is off limits. That's where Mr. Villa's son stays. He values his privacy. Of course. Thank you so much, Carol said gratefully. Carol was assigned to clean the main living rooms, large spaces that looked like museums. Marble floors, gold-framed paintings, crystal chandeliers. Every detail whispered money. Penny followed her mother quietly, eyes wide with wonder. The furniture looked too fancy to sit on. The air smelled of flowers and polish. But what caught her attention most was the garden outside. Through the tall glass windows, she saw colors she had never imagined. Bright red roses, yellow tulips, blue hydrangeas. A garden that looked alive, almost magical. And in that moment, a spark of curiosity lit up inside her. The morning light spilled across the marble floors like liquid gold. Carol wiped the last table, humming softly to herself. Penny stood near the window, eyes wide with wonder. The garden outside seemed alive. Flowers danced in the breeze, and sunlight shimmered over the fountains like falling stars. Penny pressed her hands against the glass. She longed to step outside, to touch those petals herself. But she remembered her promise. Stay quiet. Don't touch anything. Still, curiosity whispered louder than rules. Mama, she said softly. Can I just look at the flowers? Carol didn't look up. Not now, honey. Stay close to me. Penny nodded, but her heart beat faster. Moments later, while her mother cleaned another room, Penny spotted an open hallway she hadn't noticed before. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Golden light spilled through tall windows, and soft beeping sounds came from far away. Her small feet moved on their own. Each step echoed gently against the floor. The hallway smelled different, clean, sharp, and cold. At the end stood a large door, slightly open. Inside, she saw a boy sitting on a mat. He was small, maybe her age. He wore beautiful clothes, but his face looked lost, empty. He didn't turn his head when she entered. He didn't blink or move. Penny froze. Hi, she whispered, her voice shy. The boy didn't answer. She stepped closer, her bare feet quiet on the soft floor. My name's Penny, she said again. Still, nothing. She looked around colorful toys, machines, and blinking lights. But the air felt heavy, like the room hadn't heard laughter in years. Penny sat down near him, cross-legged. You don't talk much, huh? She said softly. He stayed. Still, eyes staring into a world only he could see. She picked up a small toy ball beside him. It was shiny and smooth, with little bells inside. When she shook it, it made a gentle jingle. Ethan didn't move. Penny frowned. Don't you like music? She asked, then shook the ball again, louder this time. The boy flinched slightly. Penny smiled. There you are, she whispered. You can hear me. Minutes passed. She talked about everything, the flowers, her mud cookies, her tiny house. She didn't care that he didn't answer. She spoke because it felt right, because silence felt too sad. At one point, she gently touched his hand. His skin was warm, soft. He didn't pull away. For the first time, Ethan's fingers twitched. Then, slowly, his hand moved just a little. Penny gasped softly but didn't let go. She smiled at him, eyes glowing. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm your friend." Outside, Margaret walked down the hall carrying a clipboard. She paused when she noticed the open door. Her heart jumped. No one was allowed inside Ethan's room without permission. She rushed forward but then stopped. Through the glass window, she saw something she'd never seen before. Ethan's hand, it was moving, not random, twitching. It was reaching. Margaret covered her mouth in shock. Tears filled her eyes. For 3 years, she had watched him sit like a statue. And now, a small, barefoot girl had done the impossible. Carol's voice called out down the hall, "Penny! Penny! Where are you?" Startled, Penny turned. "Oh no," she whispered, standing up quickly. Ethan's hand dropped back to his lap. Margaret entered quietly. Her eyes softened as she looked at Penny. "It's okay," she said gently. "You can go back to your mother now." Penny nodded, feeling a mix of worry and wonder. Before leaving, she looked back at Ethan one last time. He sat still again. But something had changed. A flicker of life. A spark that hadn't been there before. When Carol saw her daughter, she scolded softly, "Penny Marie, I told you not to wander." "I'm sorry, Mama," Penny said. "I just wanted to see the garden." Carol sighed, shaking her head. But Margaret stopped her. "It's all right," she said. Then she knelt beside Penny. "Sweetheart, what did you do in that room?" "Nothing," Penny said innocently. "I just talked to the boy. He looked lonely." Margaret smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "Sometimes," she whispered, "a kind voice is all someone needs." That night, Margaret told Robert everything. At first, he didn't believe her. But the security camera confirmed it. A poor girl had entered his son's room. And for the first time in 3 years, Ethan had moved. Robert didn't know whether to be angry or amazed. He sat in silence, watching the footage again and again. The moment Ethan's hand reached out, it broke something inside him. Something heavy. Something hopeless. Maybe, just maybe, money wasn't the cure after all. The next morning, he asked Margaret to find the little girl. For the first time in years, there was hope in his voice. Because sometimes, miracles don't come in white coats. Sometimes, they walk in with muddy hands and bare feet. The garden looked like something from a dream. There were flowers of every color, but also neat rows of vegetables. Farther away was a wild patch of tall grass and bright wildflowers. And at its edge shimmered a small pond. "Mama, can I go look at the garden?" Penny whispered. "I promise I won't pick anything. I just want to see." Carol hesitated, then nodded. "Stay where I can see you through the window. Don't go far. And don't touch anything. Come right back if I call," Penny promised. She slipped outside through the open garden door. The moment her bare feet touched the stone path, she felt like she had stepped into another world. The air smelled of roses and cut grass. Bees buzzed between blossoms. A butterfly landed on her arm, orange and black. She held her breath until it flew away. She followed the path toward the wild part of the garden. The grass there grew freely, brushing against her knees. And near the pond, she found the best mud she had ever seen. Rich, dark, and cool to the touch. She knew she had promised not to touch anything. But this wasn't furniture or crystal vases. This was earth, and earth was meant to be touched. She looked back. Her mother was still visible through the window, dusting a table. "I'll be quick," she whispered. Penny knelt and scooped a handful of mud. It felt perfect. Smooth. Soft. Not too wet. She began to shape little figures. A bird. A flower. A turtle. She was so focused, she didn't notice she wasn't alone anymore. A hidden door from Ethan's therapy room opened into this part of the garden. Margaret had insisted on it, hoping sunlight might help him, even when nothing else did. That morning, after Dr. Mueller's failed session, she had wheeled Ethan outside, leaving him near the pond for 10 minutes. He sat motionless in his chair, eyes empty, hands still. Margaret went inside to prepare his lunch. She did this every day, but today was different. For the first time in his life, Ethan tilted his head slightly. His nose twitched. The wind carried something new, the smell of wet earth, crushed grass, and wildflowers. Across the garden, Penny hummed a tune her mother often sang. It had no words, just happy sounds. She pressed a fallen flower into a mud sculpture, smiling. The hum drifted through the air, light and free. It wasn't like the careful voices of doctors or servants. It was alive, bright, and filled with joy. Something inside Ethan stirred. A faint crack formed in the walls he had built around his world. Penny picked up her favorite creation, a mudbird with a petal for a wing. She walked toward the pond to wash her hands. When she passed near the wheelchair, she froze. "Oh," she gasped. "Hello. I didn't see you there." The boy didn't move. His eyes, the color of honey, stared blankly. Penny tilted her head, studying him. "Are you Mr. Villa's little boy?" "My mama is cleaning the house. I'm Penny. I'm 4 years old." "How old are you?" Silence. Penny didn't mind. The neighbor's cat never answered her either. She stepped closer. His eyes didn't follow her. "Can't you see me?" she asked softly, then smiled. "That's okay. My grandpa couldn't see well either. He said I should talk a lot so he'd know what was happening." She looked at the mudbird in her hand. Then, at his empty palms. "Have you ever played with mud? It's the best thing ever. Look, I made a bird." She forgot he couldn't see and held it up anyway. Then she did something no doctor had ever dared to do. She took his hand. His skin was warm and soft. His fingers hung loose. But she didn't care. She pressed the small mudbird into his palm and gently closed his fingers around it. "There," she whispered. "Now you can feel it. It's a bird. See the wings? I put a flower petal right here. Birds need pretty things too. Don't you think?" For 3 long seconds, nothing moved. Then Ethan's fingers tightened, just slightly, as if trying to feel the shape. Penny's face lit up. "You can feel it. Do you like it? I can make you more a whole family." Before anyone could stop her, Penny sat beside his chair, hands busy in the mud. She shaped turtles and butterflies, talking as she worked. "This one's a turtle," she said. "They're slow and patient, like Mama says I should be, but I'm not very good at it. And this one's a butterfly. I saw one today, orange and black. It sat right on my arm, like I was a flower." Inside the mansion, Robert Villa sat in his office, staring at papers he couldn't read. Margaret walked past the window and froze. Her hand covered her mouth. Out in the wild garden, Ethan wasn't alone. A little girl with muddy hands was talking to him. And Ethan's head was turned toward her voice. His fingers still held the mudbird. For the first time in 3 years, his face had changed. Barely, but enough. A tiny ease. A hint of life. Margaret's heart raced. She wanted to run outside, but something told her not to break the moment. She hurried to find Mr. Villa instead. She burst into his office without knocking something she had never done. "Mr. Villa, come with me, please, right now." Robert looked up, frowning. "Margaret, I said no interruptions. If another doctor—" "It's not a doctor, sir," she said, trembling. "It's your son. Something's happening." Her voice made him stand instantly. He had learned her tone. This was not fear, it was hope. "Show me," he said. They moved quickly through the halls. Margaret led him not to Ethan's room, but to a small alcove overlooking the garden. Through the half-drawn curtains they could see everything. Ethan sat under the oak tree, sunlight warming his face. Beside him, The little girl with tangled hair was shaping mud animals and talking happily. Robert's breath caught. Ethan was holding something his fingers wrapped gently around. "How's it?" His head tilted toward her voice. "Who is that child?" He whispered. "She shouldn't be near him." "That's Carol Martinez's daughter," Margaret said softly. "She must have wandered off." "Then take her away," Robert said, stepping forward. But Margaret stopped him. "Sir, please, look at your son. Really. Look." Robert turned back to the window. Ethan's body looked different, relaxed, peaceful. His head followed the girl's laughter. And those still hands. They were moving. Holding on. "She gave him that," Margaret whispered. "She just walked up and put it in his hand, and he chose to hold it." Robert's throat tightened. "It could be reflex," he muttered. "Coincidence." "Then watch," Margaret said. "In the garden." Penny lifted a new creation. A small turtle. "See this shell? It's bumpy. Like real turtles have," she said. "My teacher says they can live for 100 years. Can you imagine being that old?" She giggled, then reached for Ethan's other hand. "Here, hold this one too." Her muddy fingers touched his skin. Ethan's hand turned over, palm open, ready. Robert's eyes filled with tears. That wasn't a reflex. That was choice. It wasn't a miracle, at least. Not yet. They watched in silence as Penny kept talking, unbothered that Ethan never replied. She spoke about flowers, clouds shaped like animals, her small house, and the three-legged cat next door who could still jump higher than anyone expected. "She's treating him like he's normal," Robert whispered. "Like there's nothing wrong with him." "Maybe that's what he needs," Margaret said softly. "For 3 years, everyone's treated him like a patient, a puzzle, a case to solve. But that little girl, she's treating him like a friend." Then something even more remarkable happened. Penny picked a dandelion, white and fluffy like snow. She held it near Ethan's face. "These are wish flowers," she said cheerfully. "When you blow on them, the seeds carry your wish to the sky. Want to try? Like this." She blew gently, showing him. Then she held the dandelion close to his lips. For a long moment, nothing. Then, barely visible, Ethan's lips parted. A faint breath escaped. Not much, just enough to send 3 tiny seeds drifting away. But it was real. It was choice. It was the first sign of life from his world of silence. "Dear God," Robert whispered, his voice shaking. "He did it. He actually did it." Penny clapped her hands, smiling wide. "You did it. 3 wishes. That's even better than 1, 3 chances for good things to happen." She leaned close, lowering her voice. "I always wish for my mama not to be so tired." "What did you wish for?" Of course, Ethan said nothing. But she didn't mind. She picked another dandelion. "Let's try again," she said sweetly. "You can blow more this time." Robert turned from the window, covering his mouth. His body trembled. 3 years, 3 long, hopeless years of doctors, machines, and therapies. And now a little girl with muddy hands had done in 15 minutes what millions of dollars never could. "What do I do?" he whispered. "Do I go out there? Stop her? What if she leaves and he shuts down again?" "Mr. Villa," Margaret said softly, her own eyes shining. "Just breathe. Don't disturb them. Let's see what happens." Through the glass, they watched as Penny taught Ethan how to pat the mud into shapes. She took his hand, still holding the small bird, and pressed it gently into the soft pile beside them. "Feel how cool it is?" she said. "It's like chocolate pudding. But don't eat it. You can make anything you want. Here. I'll help you." She guided his fingers, moving them through the mud. Through touch, she showed him what words couldn't. And Ethan didn't pull away. His body stayed relaxed. He let her guide him. For the first time, he was letting someone in. Inside the house, Carol finished cleaning the living room. She looked through the window, no sign of her daughter. "Penny?" she called, stepping outside. "Penny, where are you? You need to stay close." Her voice floated through the garden. Penny looked up, startled. "I'm over here, Mama," she called back. "I made a new friend." Carol followed the voice and froze. Her daughter sat in the mud beside a boy in a wheelchair. Both were covered in dirt, holding hands. Her heart nearly stopped. "Penny, get away from there right now." She rushed forward, terrified. This was Mr. Villa's son, the one she'd been told to avoid. Her mind raced with fear. She'd lose her job. No one would hire her again. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, grabbing Penny's arm. "She didn't mean any harm. I told her to stay close." But Penny pulled back. "Mama, we're playing. Look, I made him a bird and a turtle. And he blew the wish flowers. He made 3 wishes." "Penny," Carol whispered, horrified. "That's Mr. Villa's son. You can't." She stopped. Robert Villa was walking toward them. Not angry, not yelling, just walking slowly, his face unreadable. Carol's voice shook. "Mr. Villa, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't know she'd wandered off. She's just curious, sir. I promise it won't happen again." Robert raised his hand. "Please," he said softly. His eyes weren't on her, they were on Ethan. The boy still held the mudbird carefully in his hand. "What's your daughter's name?" Robert asked quietly. "Penny, sir." "She's 4. Carol's voice trembled. "She's usually very polite." "Penny," Robert said, turning to her. "That's a nice name." Penny smiled brightly. "Thank you. Are you Ethan's daddy? He's really nice. We made mud animals together. Do you want to see?" Robert's composure cracked. His eyes filled with tears. "You know his name?" he whispered. "Mrs. Margaret told my mama," Penny said proudly. "I like knowing my friends' names." "Your friends?" Robert repeated softly. He knelt down so his eyes were level with hers. "Penny, do you know Ethan can't see you? Do you know he doesn't talk?" Penny nodded seriously. "Yes, sir. But that's okay. My grandpa couldn't see good either. And my mama's friend has a baby who doesn't talk yet. They're still nice. Ethan listens really good. He held my bird carefully. See?" Robert looked at Ethan's small hand holding the sculpture. Then Penny whispered, "He blew the wish flower too. He just does things different, that's all." Something inside Robert broke open a wall built over years of grief. This little girl, poor and barefoot, understood what no doctor ever had. Ethan didn't need fixing. He needed to be seen. He needed to be loved. "Penny," Robert said thickly, "would you like to come back tomorrow to play with Ethan again?" Carol gasped. "Mr. Villa, you don't have to, please," Robert interrupted. "I'm not being polite. I'm begging you. Whatever happened here today, it's a miracle. If your daughter can help my son, I'll pay you. I'll triple whatever you earn." Carol shook her head gently. "You don't need to pay us extra, sir. If being with your son makes Penny happy and helps him somehow, we'll come. Not for money, because it's right." Robert looked at her, humbled. This woman, who had so little, was richer than he had ever been. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." Margaret joined them, eyes full of tears. "Perhaps it's time to let the children rest," she said softly. "It's almost Ethan's lunch." Penny knelt by Ethan again. "Penny," the Margaret joined them. "I have to go now, but I'll come back tomorrow, okay? We'll make more mud things. And I'll bring my favorite smooth rock. You can feel how nice it is." She smiled, then leaned forward and gave him a gentle hug. For a few seconds, time stood still. When she pulled back, Ethan didn't move. Then, slowly, his right hand lifted, just an inch. But it was real. He reached for her. Robert whispered, voice breaking. He reached for her. Margaret's hands flew to her mouth. Carol stood frozen, eyes wide. "Bye, Ethan. Bye, Mr. Villa. Bye, Mrs. Margaret. Penny waved happily as she and her mother walked away. She had no idea she had just changed their lives forever. Robert stood in the garden long after they were gone. Ethan still held the little mudbird, his fingers wrapped around it like treasure. That night, Robert sat beside his son's bed. Margaret had tried to clean the sculpture away, but he stopped her. "It stays," he said softly. "It's the first thing he's ever chosen to hold." The room glowed faintly in the nightlight. Ethan's face looked peaceful. The tension was gone, his breathing calm. "I don't know what that little girl did," Robert whispered. "I don't know how she reached you, but I promise, Ethan, I'll give her every chance to help you find your way back." He touched his son's small hand, the same hand that had reached for love for the first time. And miles away, in a tiny house, Penny fell asleep, still talking about her new friend, the boy, with the quiet eyes and the kind heart. Carol helped Penny into her pajamas. "Mama, do you think Ethan liked the bird I made him?" Her voice was soft, sleepy, but full of hope. "Do you think he'll keep it?" She smiled, eyes glowing. "Tomorrow I'll make him a whole zoo. Elephants, giraffes, maybe even a dinosaur if I can." Carol brushed her daughter's messy curls. "I think Ethan was lucky to meet you today, Sweet Pea." "I was lucky too," Penny said proudly. "It's hard to find friends who like mud as much as I do." Carol laughed softly. As she tucked Penny into bed, she thought about Robert Villa's face, that mix of hope and gratitude that only comes from heartbreak. She thought about the quiet little boy who couldn't see or speak, yet had reached back toward her daughter. She didn't understand it. She didn't need to. Some miracles don't need reasons. Sometimes they just come with muddy hands and an open heart. In the dark of her small room, Penny hugged her old stuffed rabbit and smiled. She had made a new friend today, a boy who didn't talk, who couldn't see, but who had held her mudbird so carefully. He had tried so hard to blow those dandelion seeds. She couldn't wait for tomorrow. Neither child knew what had begun. Neither understood that their friendship would challenge everything the adults believed about love, connection, and what it means to truly see someone. But in two homes, one grand and one tiny, divided by wealth, but joined by kindness, two children slept peacefully, and their parents lay awake, hearts full of wonder. The journey had only just begun. And tomorrow, when a girl with muddy hands walked back into a mansion filled with silence, the next chapter of the impossible would unfold. What would happen when Penny returned? Would Ethan still respond? Or would the light fade again like morning fog? What was waking up behind his quiet eyes? What was changing inside that unseen world? The answers would come, but first, the sun had to rise. A new day waited, one that would test hearts, break beliefs, and teach Robert Villa more about love than all the doctors in the world ever could. The sun had barely risen when Robert Villa opened his eyes. He hadn't really slept. Each time he closed them, he saw Ethan's hand reaching toward Penny, saw his son holding that tiny mudbird like it was made of gold. Part of him feared it was only a dream, or worse, a single miracle that would never happen again. He walked quietly to Ethan's room before dawn. Margaret was already there. She had stayed overnight, as she often did when Robert was worried. She sat beside Ethan's bed, the small mudbird resting in her hands. "It dried overnight," she said softly. "It's hard now. I was thinking of sealing it, so it doesn't crumble." Robert took it gently. The sculpture was uneven. One wing, larger than the other. The petal, now brown and fragile. It was clumsy and beautiful, the most precious thing he had ever held, besides his son. He slept with his hand stretched out, Margaret said. Toward the nightstand, toward the bird, like he knew it was there. Robert's voice trembled. What if that was all? What if today he doesn't respond again? Then we face that if it happens, Margaret said firmly. But Mr. Villa, I've worked with children for 30 years. What I saw yesterday was real. That girl reached him, and I don't think that door will close easily. Ethan stirred. Both adults went still. His honey-colored eyes opened. He lay silent, as always, until his hand began to move. His small fingers brushed across the blanket, searching, reaching for something. "The bird," Robert breathed. He's looking for the bird. Margaret quickly placed it in his hand. The moment he touched it, Ethan's fingers closed around it and drew it close to his chest. A small sound escaped his lips, not a word, but a soft exhale of comfort. Robert sat down hard, shaking. He remembers. He was looking for it. Yes, Margaret whispered, eyes glistening. He remembers her. 3 miles away, Penny was already awake too. She burst into her mother's room before the sun had even risen. Mama, is it time to go see Ethan yet? Carol groaned, glancing at her phone. Penny, it's 5:30 inches the morning. We're not going anywhere for 3 hours. 3 hours? Penny flopped onto the floor. That's like 100 years. Carol laughed softly. It had been a long time since she'd seen her daughter this excited. Go, get dressed, sweet pea, she said. Eat your breakfast. Time moves faster when you're busy. Penny ran off singing, making up songs about mudbirds and wish gardens. Carol sipped her coffee, thinking about the strange message she'd received from Mr. Villa last night. He'd asked her to bring Penny again. Said the children could play as long as they wished. He even mentioned that lunch would be ready for Penny and that the full garden was open to them. It felt surreal. Yesterday, she'd feared losing her job. Today, she was being begged to return. Mama, I need to bring things for Ethan, Penny called from her room. My smooth rocks, my feather, and maybe my books. We'll see, Carol said. Let's just start with you. But when it was time to leave, she couldn't resist that eager little face. They packed a small bag of treasures. River stones, a blue feather, a worn picture book, and a pouch of soft clay from Penny's school. The bus ride felt endless to Penny. She pressed her face to the window, watching the world change around her. When they reached the grand gates, Mr. Villa himself was waiting. He looked tired, but his eyes were alive with hope. Good morning, he said softly. Thank you for coming. Carol smiled politely. We're happy to be here, sir. Penny bounced with excitement. Hi, Mr. Villa. Can I go see Ethan now? I brought him presents, not store presents, but special things I found. Do you think he'll like them? Robert knelt down, eyes glistening. I think he'll love them, Penny. He's been waiting for you, Penny gasped. He has? How do you know? Because he held your bird all night, Robert said softly. And this morning, he searched for it. Her eyes grew wide. He kept it? Really? He kept it. She turned to her mother, glowing with joy. Mama, did you hear? He kept it. I heard, sweet pea, Carol said. That's wonderful. Margaret appeared with a smile. Good morning, Penny. Ethan's in the garden. He's been waiting since breakfast. Penny ran ahead, her bag swinging, feet tapping against the stone path. The adults followed quietly. Carol nervous. Robert trembling with hope. In the wild garden, Ethan sat beneath the oak tree. Sunlight danced across his face. The mudbird rested in his lap, held carefully in both hands. Ethan, Penny called. I'm here. I came back, just like I promised. Ethan turned toward her voice. His fingers tightened on the bird. His lips moved faintly, though no words came. You still have it, she said brightly. You didn't let anyone take it. That makes me so happy. She dropped her bag, sat cross-legged beside him, and pulled out her treasures. This is my favorite stone, she said. It's smooth like a bird's egg. She took his hand and placed the cool rock in his palm. See? Feel it. Ethan's fingers brushed across it slowly, back and forth, learning its shape, its weight, its story. He's doing it, Robert whispered, amazed. It wasn't a fluke. Penny smiled and pulled out a bright feather. This is from a blue jay. They're loud birds. My mama says they have attitudes. She giggled. Feel how soft it is. She brushed it across Ethan's hand. He flinched, just a tiny movement. But real. Alive. It tickles, doesn't it? She said with delight. I'll put it here. She tucked it gently into his pocket. For the next hour, she shared her treasures one by one, A pine cone, a piece of bark, a handful of acorns. With each, Ethan responded a little more. His fingers explored. His head turned quicker toward her voice. His breathing changed. Less mechanical. More human. More alive. And when she finally pulled out the clay, her smile grew wide. "This is special clay," she said proudly. "It never dries out. You can make things again and again. Want to make something together?" Penny pulled off a small piece of clay and pressed it into Ethan's hand. Then she took his other hand and began to guide his fingers gently. "Feel how it squishes between your fingers," she said softly. "You can make it into any shape you want. Let's make a ball first. Just squeeze it all together. Yeah, like that." Robert watched his son's hands move under Penny's small touch. He saw Ethan's face change more expression than he had shown in 3 long years. His forehead wrinkled in focus, his lips pressed together as if he was trying. "He's trying," Robert whispered, voice shaking. "Margaret, look at him. He's actually trying." Margaret nodded, tears in her eyes. "She's teaching him," she said softly. "She's showing him how to touch the world again." Carol stood a little apart, watching her daughter. She had never seen Penny so calm, so patient. Usually, her little girl bounced around like a butterfly. But with Ethan, she was careful. She gave him time to feel things, never rushing, never annoyed. After a while, Penny's eyes lit up with a new idea. "Ethan, want to feel something amazing? Come on, let's go to the muddy spot." She turned to Margaret. "Can he come out of his chair? I want him to sit on the ground with me." Margaret looked at Robert. He nodded quickly. "Yes, he can." Together, they lifted Ethan from his chair and placed him on the soft grass. His legs folded awkwardly, unused to movement, but he didn't resist. If anything, his body seemed lighter, freer on the ground. Penny sat beside him, her shorts already messy from play. "Okay," she said brightly. "This is the best part. We're going to put our hands right in the mud, not to make anything, just to feel it. It's cool and squishy, like the earth is giving you a hug. Ready?" She took Ethan's hand and pressed it gently into the mud. His fingers sank in. He went very still. Then something incredible happened. His fingers flexed, digging deeper. A small sound came from his mouth, not a word, but a sound with meaning. Penny gasped. "You like it?" she cried, clapping her hands. Mud flying everywhere. "I knew you would. Mud is the best." She scooped up a handful and squeezed it. "See? It's like mud spaghetti. Want to try?" She helped him shape and squeeze. Ethan copied her slowly. Mud slipped through his fingers and another sound escaped his lips. Robert turned away, covering his mouth, shoulders shaking. Carol moved closer. "Mr. Villa, are you all right?" He shook his head, eyes full of tears. "When he was born, the doctors said he might never talk. But he's 3 years old, and I've never heard him make a sound like that. Not once. Your daughter, she's doing the impossible." Carol looked at Penny, her heart swelling. "I don't understand it," she whispered. "Penny's just being Penny. Maybe that's exactly why it works," Margaret said gently. Margaret said, "She doesn't see him as broken. She just sees a friend who feels things differently." They watched as Penny pulled out her old picture book. "Okay," she said cheerfully. "I'm going to read you my favorite story. It's about animals, and I know all the words. But the best part is you can feel the pictures." She opened the book and guided Ethan's hand. "This is a bunny. See how soft and fuzzy his fur is? And this is a fish. Feel how smooth and slippery it feels. And here's a porcupine. Don't worry, it's not sharp. Just bumpy." Page by page, she showed him each animal, pressing his fingers to every texture. Ethan's hands stayed busy, exploring every page. His head turned toward her voice like it was pulling him out of darkness. Time passed without anyone noticing. The sun rose higher. Morning turned into afternoon. Margaret brought sandwiches and fruit for lunch. Penny helped Ethan hold a sandwich, guiding his small hands until he took a bite by himself. You did it. She cheered. You fed yourself. That's amazing. It was a small act, but to them, it was a victory. And in Penny's voice, there was no pity. Only joy. Later, she lay down in the grass beside him. They were both covered in mud, laughing softly. That cloud looks like a dragon, she said, pointing up. And that one looks like an ice cream cone. What do you think they look like? Ethan couldn't answer. He couldn't see the sky, but he lay beside her, calm and peaceful, his hand still holding the smooth stone she'd given him. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of something beautiful, a quiet friendship made of trust and touch. Robert watched them lying side by side. His son, who had never had a friend, and the little girl who had decided, without question, that they were friends. Something inside him began to melt. He walked over and sat on the grass beside them. Penny, he said softly, can I ask you something? She rolled to face him. Sure, Mr. Villa. Why do you think Ethan likes playing with you? Penny thought hard. Well, she said finally, I think maybe because I listen to him. But he doesn't talk, sweetheart. How can you listen? Not with ears, Penny said seriously. I listen with my eyes and my heart. I watch how he holds things, how his face changes, how his breathing sounds when he likes something. That's talking too. It's just not with mouth words. Robert's eyes filled again. This 4-year-old child had just taught him more about his own son than any expert ever had. You're very wise, Penny, he said softly. She giggled. My mama says I'm trouble, but I think she means good trouble. When the sun began to set, Carol said they had to leave. She had another job that evening. Penny's face fell. But I don't want to leave Ethan yet. I know, sweet pea, Carol said. But you can come back tomorrow. Really? Promise? Robert nodded, quickly. Yes. Every day. If you want. You're doing something amazing for him. Penny beamed. She turned to Ethan, who still clutched the smooth stone. Did you hear that? I'm coming back tomorrow, and I'll bring more things to show you. Maybe we can make mud animals again. Ethan didn't respond with words, but Penny smiled knowingly. He's excited, she said. I can tell. Before leaving, she took the blue feather from his pocket and handed it to Robert. Put this under his pillow tonight, she said. That way, he'll remember I'm coming back and won't be sad when he wakes up. Robert took the feather carefully. That's very thoughtful, Penny. I'll make sure he has it. And the stone, she added firmly. It's his now. That one's special, Robert promised. They lifted Ethan back into his chair. As they did, he made that small sound again. A soft, real sound that meant something. See, Mama? Penny said proudly. He's talking. Maybe not everyone hears it, but I do. After they left, Robert sat in the garden, the blue feather trembling in his hands. Margaret came out as the sun went down. She's coming back tomorrow? She asked. Yes, Robert said quietly. Tomorrow, and every day after if she'll come. He looked at the marks in the grass where Ethan and Penny had lain side by side. I spent 3 years trying to bring Ethan into our world, he said. But she met him in his. She learned his language. Margaret nodded gently. It shouldn't take a 4-year-old to teach that. Robert smiled sadly. Maybe it did. Now I finally understand what he's been trying to say. That night, he tucked Ethan into bed himself. He slid the blue feather under his pillow, placed the smooth stone beside the mudbird, and whispered, She's coming back tomorrow, Ethan. We're going to learn how to listen to you, even without words. For the first time in 3 years, Robert felt something warm, something alive. He felt hope. And miles away, a little girl with muddy hands fell asleep, smiling, dreaming of clouds, dragons, and a quiet boy who talked with his hands and his breathing and his careful way of holding treasures. Tomorrow would bring new wonders and challenges none of them could imagine. But tonight, 2 families slept with lighter hearts, joined by the impossible bridge, a little girl built with patience mud, and love that asked for nothing in return. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support our journey. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss the heart-touching conclusion coming next.